Hey, it's Ann Carton here again this week, and today I want to talk about starting a podcast. If you are looking to really take your business to the next level, you want to really be seen as the expert and the authority in your space, and you've been considering starting a podcast, but you're just not sure, I want to share with you some things to think about before you get started. Now, even if you have a podcast, but you're like, wow, this is a lot of work and a lot of time, and I'm not sure what to do with this, then let's talk about a few things that you can think about to maybe take that podcast to the next level to really help you in your business. So first, I want you to think about starting your podcast with a strategy. A lot of people don't do this. They don't start with the end in mind. And so they end up putting all of this time and effort and energy into a podcast, and maybe even money if they're having someone else do all of the back end stuff for them. And all of a sudden they're frustrated because this podcast isn't really doing anything for them, but what do you want it to do? So it starts with, what is the purpose for your podcast? What do you want it to do in your business? Do you want to make money from your podcast? Do you want to be able to sell your services from your podcast? Do you just want to be able to impact the world from your podcast and maybe get sponsorships down the road? All of these things have to be thought through, because unless you do this, you will find that your podcast won't go there. You won't get there. So a lot of people just start their podcast. I see it over and over again. And then they're like, I don't know if I should pivot. I don't know what I should do. I don't know how to, and we're like, well, what is the purpose for your podcast? Well, it started out, I just wanted to do it for fun. But then I realized that maybe I could be monetizing it. And now all of a sudden you've got to switch gears. So start with the end in mind. What is the goal for your podcast? Do you want to get clients? Do you want to monetize it? Do you want to sell your services? What is that for you? Figure that piece out first. Once you do that, now you have to think about who is going to be the audience for this. Okay, and what is it they're going to want? What will they listen to? What are the things that would interest them? So in my podcast, for example, The Strategic Edge, it's a podcast for entrepreneurs, professionals, and small business owners to really help them stand out as the expert in their industry, put themselves in a category of one to make their competition irrelevant. And it's about cutting edge and innovative strategies that work across industries to help people scale up their business like a boss. So it gives everything from marketing strategies to sales strategies to success strategies to where people fail. And I do a blend on my podcast of sometimes it's just me solo talking, educating, and other times I'm interviewing other experts. So determine what it is you want to do in your podcast as well. Now, once you figure these pieces out, what are the things your listeners are going to be interested in? And then that should determine really kind of how you name your podcast and how you structure what your podcast is all about. So now you need those pieces in place. And once you get all of these things in place, then you can determine, okay, when do I want to launch this? And I will tell you this, that putting together 5 podcasts to go to launch to really hit the market hard is a great way to launch. Because often when people come across your podcast or you're promoting your podcast, now they want to sort of binge listen. And so having, 4 or 5 episodes out there when you launch can be a really powerful thing to help you get traction right away. Now, I didn't know this when I started my podcast. I learned this after I launched my podcast. So I'm teaching you how to make yours even better. Now, once you do that, you want to make sure that you promote your podcast everywhere. Whatever platforms you're on with social media, you've got to market your podcast just like you market your services. So make sure that you're putting that information out there everywhere you are. And then one other thing that I want to talk about with your podcast is people say, how often should I be doing a podcast? How many episodes should I be releasing a week or a month? And here's what I'll tell you. It's whatever is going to work for you where you can be consistent. Okay, consistency is the key for a podcast. If you can't be consistent, it won't get traction. You won't keep listeners. They will go away. So you've got to be very consistent. Your podcast should get released the same time. I suggest at least once a week. It's very hard to get traction in a podcast if you're not doing it at least once a week. Now, some podcasts they do a podcast every single day, but it's their main business. If it's not your main business, then you've got to fit it into everything else that you're already doing. So think about starting with once a week, and if that goes well, you may change your mind to go to 2 times a week or 3 times a week. It's completely up to you. There's no right or wrong, but what is wrong is not being consistent, all right? And the other thing is you don't want to start your podcast and then quit because you can't keep it up. Now, one other thing that I'm going to tell you that is really powerful when you're doing your podcast is to block your interviews. So if you are interviewing guests, take a day or 2 a month and put all of your podcast interviews into that 1 day or that 2-day period. And then you'll have all of your episodes done for the entire month. And it will really simplify your process. If you're trying to interview people wherever you can, it makes it very difficult, and this is often where people fall away from the consistency because now they're trying to fit it in versus setting the time frame and then making that work. It's so much easier. I know when I launched my podcast, I actually really did about 4 months worth of interviews in a 1-week period. And then I was literally almost done for 4 months, except to just promote my podcast. So these are some great tips and strategies and secrets for you to launch a great podcast. And I have to tell you that it's so amazing to get great content out there in a podcast. You can really share your expertise and your knowledge. You can get in front of people that maybe you wouldn't have been able to get a connection with before. You can curate an audience and a following who will love your content. And now you've got great content to put out there across social media. You can even cut that podcast up into bite-sized little chunks and create multiple pieces of content that you can put out there. So, do I think you should start a podcast? Absolutely. If you've got the time and if you have a strategy behind it and a real purpose for what you're trying to accomplish. Podcasting right now is one of the hottest trends. And a lot of this has come because of COVID. You know, everything went virtual, right, in 2020. And so a lot of people were looking for ways to build content and also share with their audience and their followers their experience and their knowledge and their skills. So get a podcast started if you're ready to take your business to the next level, if you want to be seen as an expert, or maybe you just want to have great impact in the world. People need to hear from you. You have a great message or a great story or a great experience to share with other people. So I hope this is helpful for you. And if you need help getting your podcast started or you need a great strategy mapped out, that's one of the things that I help people do is I'm helping them level up their business. So if I can help you, by all means, reach out to me. You can book a call or you can leave me a comment, and I always check the comments on my YouTube training. So get your podcast started if it feels like the right thing for you. Think about the long game. This is not a short-term strategy. This is a long-term strategy. So before you start it, just already get in your mind that this is going to be something you're going to do for a very long time. All right. By the way, if you like this training, make sure you subscribe to my channel. Hit the notification bell so that you get the videos and the podcasts that I release every single week on this channel. And if I can help you in your business, launch your podcast, or even get your back-end stuff done for your podcast and your marketing materials, I can help you with any of those things. So you have an amazing day. Bye-bye.